The grand dining room of the five-star restaurant shimmered like a jewel in the heart of the city, and under the crystal chandeliers the light scattered in hundreds of fragments that danced across polished silverware, across flawless glass goblets, across the gleaming marble floor where shadows of wealth and power mingled with the golden glow of abundance. The piano in the corner sent ripples of delicate sound into the air, soft melodies curling through conversations that rose and fell like waves. Men in tailored suits sat tall and confident, their laughter rolling like coins spilling from hidden vaults. Women in gowns that caught every spark of light moved with a grace that seemed rehearsed, as if every step, every tilt of a glass, every flicker of an eyelash was part of a performance rehearsed for years in rooms where money dictated manners and refinement was a language of its own. At the far corner of the room, almost away from the stage of opulence yet still under its heavy glow, sat a woman whose presence carried a quiet weight that drew eyes even when she did nothing. She wore a simple kimono-style dress, dark and understated, a garment that spoke not of trend or fashion, but of dignity. Her silver hair was pinned carefully, every strand in its place, not in vanity but in discipline. Her face carried the lines of years, not only of age but of choices, sacrifices, triumphs, and burdens. Her hands, resting gently upon the white linen, trembled slightly, and from them hung a pendant, small and modest, yet cradled with the care of something more precious than any crown she was known to. Many, though not by name, for whispers had filled the room the moment she entered. Some said she was the Japanese businesswoman who had risen from nothing to build an empire in Tokyo. Others whispered she was in New York seeking investments and alliances. Every mouth carried a version of her story, but none dared approach, for her silence and composure formed a shield that seemed unbreakable. Yet beneath the surface of admiration, a subtle shift unfolded when the waiter presented her with the heavy menu, leather-bound and gilded with gold. The elegant characters upon its pages, written in English, seemed foreign and unyielding. To her eyes she studied them with care. Her lips parting as she tried to form words, she struggled to summon English phrases, broken and halting, her accent thick, her voice low and hesitant, her words fragile, as if each syllable carried the weight of unfamiliar stone that would not shape into meaning. The waiters leaned forward with polite patience, but their brows furrowed. The guests nearby caught sight of her faltering, and though some tried to avert their gaze, smirks curved upon others. Lips' whispers traveled faster than the piano notes. Admiration curdled into something else, an unspoken judgment, a spectacle unfolding of a woman of immense wealth and authority, rendered powerless, not by lack of money, but by lack of voice. Her composure remained intact, her back straight. Her gaze lowered to the menu, but her trembling hands betrayed her, and the pendant pressed tighter against her chest. The staff attempted to assist, pointing at dishes, repeating words louder as though volume could pierce the wall between languages, but the louder they spoke, the smaller she seemed, until finally her lips pressed together and her eyes dimmed. The veil of loneliness rose once more, surrounding her in a silence none dared to break, and it was a silence louder than laughter. Among the busy staff rushing between tables, carrying wine trays and balancing plates, stood a young waitress. Her name tag, simple and plain, reading Emily. Her hair pulled back in a ponytail that had already loosened. From the evening rush, her uniform lacking the sharp polish of the senior staff, she had not been trained to handle elite guests. She spent most of her nights carrying water-clearing glasses and attending to the tasks others avoided. She was new, she was ordinary, she was invisible, and yet her eyes watched closely. Not the chandeliers, not the gowns, not the men boasting of profits, but the woman at the corner table. Emily felt something stir deep within her, a memory she had carried quietly. Since childhood, her grandmother sitting at the kitchen table speaking only Japanese. Her grandmother who never fully mastered English despite decades in America. Emily remembered the long nights when she would sit by her side listening to the rhythm of words her classmates never understood, learning to weave meaning from sounds because love demanded it. She remembered being the translator, the bridge between her grandmother and the impatient world. And though she rarely used the language outside those family walls, it remained part of her identity, a secret skill hidden in her heart. Now as she saw the older woman clutching her pendant, struggling to be heard, Emily recognized the same helplessness she had seen in her grandmother. She looked At her manager, who already whispered in frustration with another waiter shaking his head as though the situation was unsalvageable. Emily knew it was not her place. This was not her table, but something larger than rules tugged at her. She felt her feet move before her thoughts could stop them, and soon she stood at the woman's table, bending gently to meet her eyes with warmth. And then Emily spoke in Japanese, her words soft, careful, filled with respect. The transformation was like a spark. Struck against stone, the older woman's eyes widened. Her lips parted and her entire body seemed to awaken. Her trembling ceased, her breath caught as though she feared it was a dream. Then Emily repeated herself again, and this time tears glistened. In the woman's eyes, tears of relief, tears of being seen for the first time that night. Her face broke into a smile. Radiant and trembling words poured from her, fluent and graceful like a river breaking through a dam, and Emily answered with ease, their voices dancing together across the divide that moments before had seemed endless. The room fell into stunned silence. Diners who had smirked now leaned forward, their disbelief etched in their expressions. Forks paused in midair. Whispers stilled, as if the chandeliers themselves had hushed to witness the shift. The Japanese businesswoman, once isolated, now laughed softly. Her voice filled with gratitude. She leaned forward, speaking with animation, and Emily listened attentively, translating her request to the chef, guiding her through the evening with patience and care. The weight that had hung heavy over the table lifted, and in its place came light and dignity, the kind no wealth could purchase. As the night unfolded, Emily remained, near translating when needed, offering reassurance in small gestures, ensuring the woman was comfortable and understood. The millionaire, who had long been admired for fortune, for empire, for success, now discovered the rarest gift of all, a human connection that neither status nor wealth could guarantee. She had been praised by leaders, courted by investors, bowed to by strangers, but none of those gestures reached her heart, as the voice of this young waitress did. Before leaving, the woman reached for Emily's hand, her grip firm, though her eyes brimmed with tears. She whispered words of gratitude, words that only Emily understood, and though no one else knew their meaning, every person in the room felt the weight of them. When she departed, escorted by her driver, the restaurant buzzed once more, but the whispers were different. Hushed, reverent, contemplative. Some diners sat quiet, ashamed of their earlier smirks. Others inspired by the reminder that kindness was the true currency. Even Emily's manager, who had frowned at her earlier, seemed softened, though he said nothing. His eyes carried an unspoken acknowledgement that what Emily had done mattered more than any ritual of service. Weeks passed, and Emily continued her work quietly until, one afternoon, an envelope arrived bearing her name. It was written in elegant script. Inside lay a letter handwritten in Japanese, the words warm and personal. It carried with it an invitation to a cultural foundation event in the city, not for her to serve, but to attend as an honored guest, and within the envelope was more than an invitation. It was a scholarship. The millionaire woman had learned of Emily's struggles in community college, her pursuit of language studies, her quiet financial battles, and she had chosen to sponsor her education. When Emily read the letter, tears filled her eyes, her heart trembled. She had never expected that a single act of kindness given freely without thought of return could ripple outward and change the course of her life. Yet here was proof. Her small decision to step forward had not only restored dignity to another, but had opened doors for herself. Years passed. Emily traveled across oceans, her voice carrying across stages and halls as she became a professional translator bridging cultures and nations. Her name appeared on programs, her work respected and sought after. Yet in her heart, she always carried that night in the restaurant. She remembered the chandeliers, the hush of the room, the tears that fell from eyes lined with years, and the lesson etched into her soul, that kindness and dignity weigh heavier than riches, and that sometimes the smallest voice, the one overlooked by all, can carry the power to move mountains. She remembered her grandmother too, and felt that in helping the Japanese woman that night, she had also honored her grandmother's memory, as though the threads of past and present had been woven together into something enduring. She often closed her eyes before stepping onto new stages and recalled the way the Millionaire woman had smiled at her the way gratitude had transformed the air around them, and she knew that no matter how far she traveled or how many words she translated, the true meaning of language lay not in syllables or grammar, but in the act of reaching across barriers to remind another soul that they are not alone. And in the end, when people looked at Emily, they did not see just a translator or a scholar. They saw the living proof of a truth too easily forgotten, that it is not wealth that defines us, not power, not titles, but the quiet moments when love and compassion flow freely from one person to another, carrying the kind of strength that lasts beyond lifetimes. And though the chandeliers of that dining room no longer glittered in her memory, and the piano had long since fallen silent, the light of that night remained within her, unbroken, eternal, a flame that whispered always that dignity, kindness, and human connection are treasures richer than gold.